Evening, and welcome to Story Hour. I'm tonight's host, Laura Blackwell. My co-host, the marvelous Daniel Marcus, started Story Hour over 5 years ago in the throes of the pandemic, the official pandemic. And as we have since moved on to other throes, we've been enduring all of them with stories on Wednesdays. So tonight is a very exciting night for us because we have two writers who I'm very fond of, and they both have new collections to promote. So tonight, our readers are Thomas Ha and Clay McLeod Chapman. And welcome back, by the way, to those of you who are back watching us again, and welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time. This is going to knock your socks off. If you are joining us on Zoom, feel free to join in on the text chat. And if you're joining us on YouTube, feel free to enjoy the stories without the pressures of social interactions. Our first reader tonight is Thomas Ha. Thomas Ha is a Nebula, Ignite, Hugo, Locus, and Shirley Jackson Award-nominated writer of speculative short fiction. His debut collection, Uncertain Suns and Other Stories, is now available from Undertow Publications, nice outfit, and wherever books are sold. Thomas grew up in Honolulu, and after a decade plus of living in the Northeast, now resides in Los Angeles with his family. Thomas, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm excited to be here. And yeah, I am going to be reading a story from that collection you just mentioned, Uncertain Suns and Other Stories. I'm going to hold it up briefly, see if I can unblur it. This is it.
Hold it still for another second. Yeah, it's a beauty.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this is from Undertow, like you mentioned, and it's finally out in the world. I can breathe a sigh of relief and take it easy a little bit. So to celebrate, I will be reading The Mub, which is a horror sci-fi story that came out in Clark's World a couple years ago, 2023. Some content warnings up top. There is some profanity and violence, like all good stories should have, but maybe some implied death and implied violence towards animals involving a horse, but it's really hard to tell. It depends on how you interpret what the heck is happening. Just in case you're sensitive to it, I'm just warning up top, but it is really hard to tell if that's even what occurs. I'm just being a little bit conservative just in case. Um, but that's pretty much it. And so I'm going to dive into the story. This is The Mub. Somewhere between the black slopes and the longest stretch of the cratered plains, I came across a traveler who I thought might be leaving the city and headed for the nested forests. I greeted him from a distance, just as the road curved around a copse of crooked and dry-skinned pines, but he would not look at me. It was only when we came close to one another that he muttered, "Don't," as though throwing the word heavily at my feet, then kept on his way without offering anything else. I thought it unkind and almost said something in response, but then I saw the mub. Bent low to the ground, moving along in the traveler's wake, it looked up at me with two rounded eyes the color of antique brass, resting above a flat mouth that continued to open and close. So I averted my gaze and gradually turned my chin to the sky. I came to stand very, very still as though I were nothing more than one of the nearby trees, waiting while those two others continued by. Even then, I could feel the mub, its little steps moving bit by bit past me on the uneven road, but I did not move or speak, and I remained perfectly stationary, turning my thoughts only to the drifting patchwork of clouds and the bending threads of smoky afternoon light, thinking only of clouds and light and nothing else, as much as possible. Eventually, when they were gone, and it was only me and the waving branches and wailing sounds in the woods, I went on my way a bit faster until it grew too dark to go any farther. I made camp beside a stump and ate the remaining cheese and bread from my pack, and when I finally slept, to the sound of whistling winged things joining the chirps rising from the long grass, I dreamt of the city again. I dreamt about the things I'd try to do to better my position there with enough time. First, securing an apartment. Second, employment in one of the port warehouses. Then, with enough wages set aside and safely saved, I'd resume selling my illustrations whenever I could next find a buyer of interest. But midway through that dream of the things I'd hoped to come, before I'd managed to pick up my pen and inks and begin to create, as I sometimes did in those kinds of imaginings, morning rushed to my open eyes, and with it some sharpness of the remains of my fire beside the road. And across the cinders, the mub sat, like it was waiting for me to see it. This one could, I suppose, have been a different mub, and I would have no way of knowing. But I had the sense it was the same one I'd seen with the traveler the day before. It was looking intently at me, hunched small, and I noticed it had removed one of my sketches from my pack, a self-portrait, I realized, one of a dozen that I drew and redrew every year in my ever-changing style to keep up my practice and perhaps to feed a little of my vanity. Delightful capture of my face. Congratulations. It clicked and beeped. I did not know how to respond, but I thought it best not to correct the mub's misunderstanding. Uh, Thank you. A likeness. So wonderful, a wonderful likeness. I can see. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Where are you traveling? That way. That way? Over that way? That way. No more than 3 words at a time, each of my sounds short and crisp, repeating often and in as uninteresting a manner as possible. I quietly gathered my things and took up my pack. I did not want to ask for the self-portrait or engage any further than necessary, so I let them up, clutch at it. I nodded and then prepared myself for the road. Oh, leaving. Yes. Now. Yes. Now. Good day. Yes, good day. Good day. And so I went on, back to the road, neither fast nor slow, but a gradual wending ahead. I did not turn, but I could sense little shuffling steps somewhere, not directly behind me, but perhaps in the trees or elsewhere, just out of sight. And in the afternoon, when I stopped to drink from my water skin, the mub emerged as if it had never left my side. I'm a creator, too. Pardon? I'm a creator too, it said, holding my illustration still. Like you. I can teach you, if you'd like, 10 or so secrets that would make you a better creator, according to various experts. Would you like to hear them? Something about its face seemed different in its shape and color than I remembered, but I did not allow myself to look for long. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. No? Thank you. The sun melted and night swallowed the trees and the sky. I slept uneasily, watching the darkness on the other side of popping flames, looking for something between the trunks until eventually I slipped away into my mind. Again, I thought of the city, which I'd not seen since I was a child, the tall buildings, the busy sidewalks, my uncle at a cart, waiting to buy us corn from the vendor. I could almost smell the dirt and the smoke again when I woke to a wet dawn and gathered my things. This time, there was no mob when I sat up to take in what was around me on the road. So I thought, or hoped, he had wandered to some other person and place. After an hour or two of travel in the early warming of the day, I came across a little village where I had been planning to stop and resupply. Less an orderly town and more a collection of squat houses scattered on either side of the road, but I was surprised to see no one about and everything quiet, quieter even than it had been before when I was by myself on the road. Leave us alone! Someone screamed. They threw a rock from behind one of the houses. It whistled by my head and clanged against a hanging bucket. Flies buzzed angrily around my ears as I ran. Doorways slammed shut in some of the small houses. and yelling thundered from some of the others. "Leave us alone! No more of you! Get away! Not again!" Did they know about the mob? Was it behind me, wandering somewhere they could see it, I wondered? Was that why? More rocks flew before I had time to think. Several hit me in the shoulder, then the pack before one finally cracked against the side of my face. It was only when I passed the last of the houses farther into the forest that I realized that blood had been flowing down my face and neck and onto my shirt. Picture! I had gotten a safe distance when I almost tripped over the mub in the road. The mub was holding my illustration, but had drawn on the back of it smears of brown and black made with its metallic cylindrical fingers. The lines formed a shape that I presumed were supposed to be the mub. Its eyes in the rendering were offset and large, and its nose bent and flat. The mouth was several sizes too big, and there was something behind the teeth, difficult to discern, but with the curves of little hands. The portrait looked in some ways like me too, I realized, but I was still shaken by the village and what had happened there, so I didn't know what I was seeing or what the mub was saying to me. What? I can as well create. What? I stepped around, trying not to look, but something was leaking down its face and around its eyes. That was when I noticed it was wearing a matted clump of hair it did not have yesterday. Like you. I told you. Expert trained so I can make things too. I tried to move one way then the other, but it mirrored my moves, shadowing my arms and legs and turning its head back and forth. It did this for several minutes until I stopped moving and looked up at the sky. No? I didn't respond until it slowly backed away from the road. I left it behind again, and for a time I thought I could feel it following, but if it was, I did not see it around me any longer. Then a day of traveling passed, then another, and I realized with the commotion in the village I hadn't resupplied with anything to eat or drink. My throat felt rough, and under the brightness of the sun I heard a strange ringing in and around my ears. The wound on the side of my face was beginning to sting with an unclean tenderness. Better stop. Don't want to overexert a body of that form. Experts recommend that you take at least 10 minutes of the day to stretch. I don't think you've stretched 10 minutes. All you need, experts say. I didn't look at the mub and kept walking. Modified bacteria may be available at clinics to address suppuration. I can direct you to the nearest locale, the nearest one, if you'd like me to retrieve directions. I continued on the road. Aren't we hungry? I think we're hungry inside. That's what you think, yes? I didn't think about anything but moving through the forest as quickly as I could. But with my head throbbing, I did have to stop for moments at a time, and I suspected the mub, wherever it was stopping too, behind the brush or behind mossy boulders low to the ground. At several points, the mub tried to leave things for me. I kept coming upon mounds of meat out on the road, red and glistening in the sun, covered in flickering insects that appeared and disappeared around the offerings. A part of me considered stopping, actually, the part that was not so quietly getting a little desperate for something to eat, thinking of making camp early and maybe trying to shear the meat for clean portions and sizzle what I could over a fire. But hungry as I was, I still did not want the mub to think we were together or that I would have anything it had to offer. I ignored its chatter from the wilderness, and my mind wandered, losing moments that seemed to slip daydreams into real dreams as I sat by the road. These little breaks where I often imagined the city that awaited me ahead, but more and more there was an odd bent to my memories of the place. Bricked alleys teeming with small animals, empty concrete near the piers, ports with slow ships that seemed to bounce against one another as if no one was attending to them, fires burning out to smoke, and doors slowly opening on their own. Things I hadn't actually seen, but my tired mind was beginning to imagine like the pictures were being placed there by someone else. This time, when I came to my senses from one of these strange meditations, there were eyes on me again, but these were white, human eyes with focus and interest, not a dream. I saw above me a man on a horse wearing a large hat, a revolver dangling at his hip. I lifted myself up on my arms as though to stand, but he shook his head and gave me a look. So I stopped and waited, realizing he was holding my pack and rifling through it. The man on the horse reached into the bag, and I noticed his fingers were covered with numerous rings of all kinds of styles and sizes. He began dropping my papers one by one after inspecting them, drawing after drawing, even the finished ones I had planned to bring to sell somewhere in the city. Then he removed my water skin and swallowed perhaps the very last drops. Careful, he finally said. You know, you've got a mub on you. Yes, there are more of them than us now, you know? I didn't know, but I'd heard some say that out on the road. Yes. Did you talk to it? No? Good. Maybe it'll lose interest if you're lucky. Annoying fuckers. Stupid. But it gets worse, as I'm sure you know. Yes. You're going this way? To the city? Yes, that way. My throat hurt. The city. Well, don't bother. The man in the hat on the horse scratched at his neck, all those rings like collars on little snakes wrapping around his skin and stubble. Come on, motherfucker, can't you, I don't know, make conversation or something? What? More words, pal. String words together in a way that makes sense. Give 'em rise and fall. Crack a fucking joke, come on. He smiled and his hand rested on his belt. Make a little effort for me, why don't you? No, thank you. His smile went away. This isn't a logic protocol or a prompt. I'm not a tin can you can bore with local tricks. Entertain me. He threw my pack on the ground and the horse shivered and bent its ears. All that art, after all, might as well. Go on then. Draw me something. Draw my horse. I want something made real if that's what you can do. What? The man in the hat did not repeat himself, and his hand started to move to his hip, so I nodded and reached into my pack for a pen and folio. I sketched quickly just the head of the man's horse from the top down to the chest, red scales pebbled around the horse's ears, and on a strange patch of scraped skin under its mouth, I noticed a tattoo of a crying woman next to the words, "Respect his might." I sketched what I could here and there, and I did still try to give it some of the exaggerated flair I did with all of my illustrations. I gave the drawing to the man in the hat when I had finished with the inking, and he laughed and showed it to his horse. Not too bad. Definitely real. Definitely you in the end. He giggled and folded it up and put it in his pocket. Be careful with that mub. More of them than us now. So you said. They fixate. Copy what they can, try to do what we do with our real intelligence, but they don't do what we do because they suck shit. Clumsy, irritating, until it gets unsafe and scary. Right. If it's really latched and you don't think you can fight it off, there's only one way to get it to go, you know. How? And this time it wasn't me being curt and clipped. This was me actually asking, beginning to wonder if that had already happened. Let it nibble a while, the man in the hat said, on your thoughts. Fill up all the way the same dreams over and over because then it'll just degrade over time, decreasing marginal benefit for them with the same thoughts like that I hear. Do it enough, keep it simple, and I'm told they fall off like ticks. Just don't, do anything stupid or give them new things to ponder and try, and don't ever let their thinking go the other way through you. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Spoken like somebody mud-fucked and doesn't even know it. The man in the hat laughed and clopped away on that horse of his. Good luck with the city, if you get there anyway. I waited until he was a good distance before I picked up my papers and stuffed them in my pack and kept going. And later, much later, when everything hushed, I huddled close as I dared to the fire and shivered, my eyes rolling back and forth over the stars and the black cracks between them. I was too weak to move, and my neck was swollen and lopsided. Somewhere behind the fire, a shape came out with its shiny eyes. A lot more was leaking around the mub's lumpy face. Its cheek seemed painted and blistered with something thick and flappy piled on. In a strange way, I thought it looked like the first self-portrait it had taken from me. And as it came closer, I noticed up and across the mub's forehead the words, "Respect his might." And down its back was long hair, too long and thick to be human, more a mane laid out like a cape. "We need to eat," the mub said, "or you can't make new things. That's one of the 10 or so secrets of creating, you know. I hate to tell you, but experts say it's true." My teeth chattered. "Don't be scared to eat, you know, and live and make new things." "No, thank you." "And the city?" "The city? What about the city out that way?" Its face was a bright red. "New things to see and to make in the city, you know, but you can't make things if you can't live to make things, right? That's just logical. To eat, to live, to create, that's what we do, right? So let me help." The words were not right, but in some way, in that moment and in my weakness, they made a strange sense. A vague sense that one thing had to be connected to the other, I thought. That I had to do what I had to do to make my way on the road. That making my way on the road meant that I could do what it was that I wanted to do once I got wherever it was the road led. And slowly I got the impression that the mub was, in its own way, agreeing with me, nodding back at me with its and my thoughts somehow with its own mind. "That's right," I answered, though I don't know if I actually said the words. And something wet slipped into my mouth and down my tightening throat. The mub raised a hand, cylindrical fingers covered in rings, and he gave me pieces one by one of whatever he was cradling in his arms, and though I did not exactly want to take it, another part of me did. And so, in crackling firelight and under the blurry stars, I did take it, little by little, until I fell into an empty sleep with the kind of dreams I could never hope to understand. The next morning I woke near a dark stain on the road with a buzzing around my head, but my cheek felt less raw, and I could think a little more clearly. My drawings were gone from my pack, and so I thought was the mub. I left the remains of that camp and tried my best not to think any more of the previous night. Knowing I was close to the city kept me on the path and moving ahead. I stumbled past a carriage drifting at an angle along the road and made it into a hostel at the very outskirts of the city, overlooking some of the tangled streets where I saw a bit of morning movement between the buildings and the water beyond the harbor. When I got indoors, I drank gratefully and greedily from a water cup offered by the woman at the front desk, and it was only after catching my breath and getting my bearings and sense of balance that I looked up and noticed the eyes of the woman, the color of antique brass. When I peered down, I could see her hand was moving this way and that, writing in a logbook, as though registering me for a stay, but the scratchings on the paper were not anything close to words. "More of us than them," or "them than us," the man in the hat on the horse had said. And I thought again about his laughter when I told him where I was going. Softly then, in the din layering in on itself out and around the waking city, between hooves and wheels and doors and steps, I began to notice that strange clicking and beeping, voices that spoke haltingly and without rise or fall, echoes of people running and breaking things and falling over. Outside the window, a short figure on a bench holding a book without turning the pages. I could feel them all in the workings of the city, a spreading incoherence, both discreet and destructive, furthering only a palpable disarray and ruin. Across the city, a boy stopped and raised his chin while several shapes moved around him. He waited, perfectly still, his eyes brimming with fear. I felt a familiar hand then on my shoulder that was both gentle and weighty, and I froze too, trying to make my body like one of the trees from before by the road. Standing there in the lobby, resisting the urge to turn and look at what was beside me, listening to the city and those sounds and someone crying, knowing the presence next to me would remain however long it took to draw my attention, until it could show me its newest face and whatever else it believed it was creating.
It just
Yeah.
keeps on being timely. Oh,
Wow.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
The sad thing is some tech pro across the bay is probably watching this right now and going, Mub, let's start developing that now. Oh, I love that one. And I feel like I could talk about it a lot, but I also feel like it does a pretty good job of doing it for itself. Um, it is our way at Story Hour to just take a moment between our readers and let that completely human generated story sink in and become a part of us. Not for the purposes of regurgitating it later, but just because it interacts with our brains in interesting ways, and we're going to keep it there. So, everybody, that was Thomas Ha reading The Mug. And our next reader tonight is Clay McLeod Chapman. Clay McLeod Chapman writes books, comic books, YA and middle grade books, as well as for film and television. Acquired Taste is his most recent collection of short stories. You can find him at claymcleodchapman.com. And I think that is one of the most modest bios we've had on Story Hour.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, so Clay, I understand you've got your new book too. Can we see?
I have a new book, and it's called Acquired Taste.
Is that an
Nice
axolotl?
cover.
Yeah.
I could never eat an axolotl. They're too cute.
Uh, the nuns in here just lick them, so they're safe.
Oh, kind of like the toad licking thing for hallucinogens. I haven't read this particular story, but
Yeah.
that's just what it makes me think.
No spoilers. No spoilers here.
Okay, sorry. So, what story are we going to hear from you tonight, Clay?
I think I'm going to read the first one. It's called The Fireplace.
Mm.
The thought of tossing our baby into the fireplace first popped into my head about a month or so ago. Around September, I'd say. Yeah, autumn was on its way, so, one lazy weekend, I figured I'd go ahead and get a leg up on winter and finally clean out that chimney. Get the flue all prepped for our first fire in our new home. We were still only 5 months deep into our domestic bliss back then. No crisp nights curled up around the fire just yet. But before we even bought this place, all the way back when Chrissy and me first took a tour of the house, before it was ours, before, it was anyone's, really, lingering within that liminal space between seller and buyer, with all these hopeful families wandering around its rooms like ghosts, inspecting every nook and cranny in some spectral attempt to decide whether or not this is the house we would want to haunt. I remember waltzing into the living room for the very first time and locking eyes on that ingle nook. It's thick brick. The oak beam reaching across the top. Its swan-necked ironworks looked like the blackened rib cage of some prehistoric beast burned to its bones. The charred chest cavity, the only remnant of its primitive existence left behind, whatever it had been. God, check out the fireplace, I said. Bet we'll save a fortune on our heating bills with that thing. Was that an offer I just heard? Chrissy whispered, hoping not to alert any of the other prospective homeowners that we were interested. Because if it was, I can, go find the realtor. Down, Simba. Take it easy. I I hadn't banked on the owners accepting our bid, to be honest. I mean, we were well beneath the listed asking price. I mean, I did it for Chrissy, but I knew there was no way in hell we would ever get a house like this. I mean, not at our annual income. I mean, come on. An 1855 Victorian with 5 bedrooms? I mean, hardwood floors. There was no way we could have called this place home. Not with that fireplace beckoning. No, we're talking the original chimney here, nearly 200 years old. The oldest part of the house at this point, I bet. The rest may have been remodeled over the years, but its brick bones remained. A spinal column of red clay holding this home upright. God, we were crazy to have come to the open house in the first place, but Chrissy begged to check it out. Just outright begged. She's always had real estate lust, spending her Sundays sifting through every last email alert agents send her way. It felt wrong being here, playing house like this, getting her hopes up, watching her eyes widen the deeper into the house we went, deciding which room would be whose. This one's ours. This one will be the baby's. I just knew that we were cruising towards heartbreak. She kept rubbing her belly like there was a genie in there, ready to grant her wish. Don't do this to yourself, I warned her. Don't get yourself worked up. But the owners saw something in us, I guess. Our family to be. Me, Chrissy, and Colin. Nothing but a bump in Mama's tummy back then. He still had a few months in the oven to go before, ding ding, dinner served. I never really cleaned a fireplace before. Yeah, I never had an actual fireplace to clean, so there you go. First time for everything, I guess. I am a man who now owns a fireplace, therefore I have become a man who must scrub it. Chrissy had been feeding Colin in bed, so I had the ingle nook all to myself. Gave us a chance to, get to know each other a little bit better. It had a molded shelf embedded into the rear wall with a hinged spit rack. Grand old rack. Had to date back to when this house was originally built. I bet all those years ago. Turn of whatever century. They must have roasted enormous joints of meat back then. Could have fed a whole coven with what they cooked on here, I bet. But kneeling underneath the hearth, I pulled the fire dogs out to scrub the floor. The grate weighed a ton. I mean, it took both hands just to tug that iron giant's rib cage out. I broke a sweat before I'd even started scrubbing, taking this metal bristled brush and scraping at the interior walls, just swiping the soot away. I was actually inside the fireplace now, on my hands and knees, working on the rear wall, like tight circular motions, wax on, wax off. The grime never seemed to go away, though. I mean, 10 minutes of brandishing that brush over brick, and it looked like I was just sweeping circles in the soot. This nibbling on tin sensation just settled into my teeth. I could feel the steel bristles all the way up in my jaw, like chewing aluminum foil. Scourge, 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 scourge. Just throbbing right through me, my bones. And this exhale spread over my spine. I swear I felt somebody's breath down my neck. And I turned around. No one was behind me. The living room was completely empty. And then I felt it again. This time on my temples. Glancing up, I felt a stray draft creep across my cheeks. The chimney flue had been left open. That's all. Just the wind, as they say, right? And then something shifts up there. I couldn't see very far up. I mean, I couldn't see much of anything, but my eyes tightened in on a pale shape centered within the brick funnel, a gray nimbus hovering in the darkness. A baby. I saw a baby. It's trapped in the shadows. Its fetal form was curled into itself, crammed in the sooty womb of the flue. Its pale skin was covered in a layer of ash, and I just reached up to touch it. I mean, that's what people do in these situations, right? Yeah. I mean, if you see something that shouldn't be there, you poke at it. Who who cares about common sense? I mean, I'm staring at a baby stuck in a chimney, for Christ's sakes. I mean, of course I'm going to touch it. But the pressure of my pointer was enough to dislodge the infant from its floating position and to just fall onto my face with this hefty exhale of soot. And I turned away from the plummeting bundle just as it dropped. So impact was actually on the back of my neck, and I felt, whew, the softest thud. Punctuated with a puff of ash before it just tumbled onto the bricks below. I was breathing in way too much soot, coughing uncontrollably now. There was like a solid 3 seconds of blurred vision. That cloud of ash slowly dissipated, clearing away to reveal a possum. uh, it must have been trapped in the chimney. Must have, I don't know, crawled down months ago and got itself stuck, starving itself up to death up there. Its body was petrified, all of its fur having fallen away, leaving behind its withered skin covered in soot. Nothing but a mummified thing now, right? Just just a possum. I figured it was probably best to get our little squatter out of the house before Chrissy saw it. She is not a fan of our furry, four-legged neighbors, so I escorted our crispy little critter by its shoestring tail, giving him a proper burial in our trash can among all the dirty diapers and coffee filters. And when I came back in, I mean, I could smell dinner cooking. Huh. Buttery pork belly. God, the halls were filled with it. I mean, my mouth was watering by the time I found Chrissy in the living room, bouncing Colin on her knee like a bucking baby bronco. What's cooking? Good looking? Nothing as far as I know, Chrissy said. Have my hands a little full here. What's up with that smell then? I'm starving. Chrissy gave me a look that would be put into constant rotation soon enough, here to categorized as what the fuck are you talking about? Sure enough, the oven wasn't on. Our kitchen was still like a work in progress. Most of our appliances hadn't found a cupboard yet, still living in their moving boxes. Like a dozen cardboard nested dolls claimed any and every inch of free space. All of our cutlery and dishes remained stacked in quick pickable piles along the countertop for easy takeout meals. I mean, not that the smell was coming from the kitchen, anyhow. No, it was in the living room from the fireplace. Bacon fat frying in the pan. You practicing to be Santa or something? Chrissy asked. I mean, you're all covered in soot. I was cleaning the fireplace, I said, more to myself but Chrissy answered anyway. I hate to break it to you, hon, but I think the chimney won. The house feels cold now. I mean, it has for months. I mean, I futzed with the thermostat and nothing seems to lift the chill. And every room I walk into, I mean, it feels as if I am plunging into the fucking tundra. My breath spreads out above me when I'm lying in bed. I have to bundle up like it's the middle of winter, 2 or 3 layers thick, pulling out the parkas from their moving box just to keep freezing in August. I mean, it's actually warmer outside than in. I mean, Chrissy looks at me like I'm nuts, which is the new norm now. Could really use your help here, she muttered the other day. Can you take Colin just for a minute, please? What do we know about the house? I asked. It's old, she shrugged, irked at me for not spotting the immediate problem at hand. I know that much, she said. Could you please take him, please? I got to start thinking about dinner. What are you hungry for? Colin was nothing but baby fat. Gripping him, I felt my hands sink into his sides, that plump swell of his pudgy tummy filling in around my fingers like cement sealing us together. Just a squishy brick and mortar. When Colin was first cleared to come home from the hospital, I had been the one to give him a grand tour. This is your room, I whispered. Most were still overwhelmed with moving boxes back then, the walls eclipsed in cardboard. Our plans of unpacking before Colin was born were quickly hijacked the moment Chrissy's water broke. Not that we minded. I mean, we had our nest now. I mean, we had all the time in the world to settle in, make this place feel like home. This is where your mommy and daddy sleep, or where we're going to try to sleep as long as you let us. And this is the living room. Her hearth had a thick cast iron plate surrounded by a brick enclosure. The entire house would embrace fire, the heat circulating through the halls and swelling up within each room like the chambers of a heart filling up with blood. And on that spit rack, oh my God, roasting on the iron, a sizzling victual. Its delectable aroma filled the house. Grease dripping off the shank hits the hearth in this thin dribble. Each drip sizzles against the iron plate, bubbling over. Chrissy's noticed that I have been avoiding the living room. I turn in early now, wrap myself up in a duvet and just call it a night. What gives? She asked. I mean, are you avoiding us now? She asked if I wanted to light a fire. As if that would solve all of our problems. Just tossed it out there one night, completely casual, like it just popped into her mind. Hey, how about a fire? The fuck did you just say? Whoa, Jesus. Don't snap at me. No, what did you just say? A fire, she fumed. All I asked was if you wanted to light a fire. Chrissy's breath smelled like peat. Decayed plant matter in her mouth. I could even see bits of turf in between her teeth, tongue just covered in earth. People used to harvest the peat from the bogs, carving out thick, sodden bricks, leaving them out to dry under the sun before bringing them inside and stacking them up in the ingle nook. Those bricks burned slowly, the softest kind of kindling, smokeless, endless. It would warm the house for days and just never die out. Warm its halls with dead vegetables and decrepit sedges, the moccasins and moss compressed within the muck and mire of 1,000 1,000 years, the bones of beasts long forgotten, lost to the bogs, the boreal peatlands slowing down their decomposition beneath our feet. Now, a fire, oh, methane flames, blooming in a beautiful blue, dancing about the hearth like willow wisps, like the aurora borealis right here in our living room. You know what? Forget it, she muttered. You're the one who's always complaining about how cold it is. I went to bed instead, curled up into a cocoon of my duvet, and I tried to hide. I mean, the house is only growing colder now. I mean, winter is nearly here. We're going to have to light a fire before much longer, you know? And I am afraid what will happen when we do, what kind of kindling she'll need. Colin woke up last night crying. It was late. I mean, it had to be 3 or 4 in the morning. I could just hear him wailing, his voice drifting down the hall. Chrissy rolled over and mumbled for me to check on him. I pretended to be asleep, but oh, that didn't fly. Your turn, she mumbled, nudging me with her elbow. It's your turn. A jolt of cold shot right up my legs the second my bare feet touched the hardwood floor. My ribs seized, locking onto my lungs like an iron grate gripping at the air in my chest. Colin wasn't in his room. It's nothing but moving boxes everywhere. I could hear the soft pads of his fingertips grazing against the cardboard of one, so I opened it. Only I found a shriveled possum curled inside. Its withered pink tail looked more like an umbilical cord to me. The crying is coming from somewhere else, a different room in the house, the living room. I feel, I feel, I feel warmer. The further down the hall I wander, I mean, it's this gentle breath brushes against my skin, drawing me in. Warmer, warmer. The fire is blazing. Our first fire in the house. It is so warm in here. And there's a woman standing by the hearth. Her back is to me. And for a moment, I think it's Chrissy, but no. This woman is much older. I see leaves tangled up in her gray hair. She turns just enough for her chin to reach out over her shoulder. Her face is a dried riverbed of wrinkles. The one I see is fogged over. It's all milky to me. But she's smiling as she stirs. There's a pot on the fireplace's hook. It's simmering. I can't see what she's cooking, but the pot boils over. Each drip sizzles against the iron plate along her hearth. The woman holds out a wooden spoon to me, offering a sip. The broth is salty, sweet. It is like nothing I have ever tasted before. Butter on my tongue. So I ask for more. Thank you.
Wouldst thou like to taste butter?
Wow.
Yeah. Did you feel like Clay was actually like looking right at you, like through the camera somehow?
Indeed. Yeah. Yeah.
So spooky. Well, that was great. And I personally am thinking about two short story collections that belong in every home this spooky month.
Sure.
And in fact, next week it will be spooky month. The most beautiful time of the year. So thank you for getting us off to an early start, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Yep, thank you.
Anytime. Wonderful to have you both. And this was, I don't want to say an enchanted reading pairing exactly. Hex, maybe?
Well, just exquisite, regardless. I mean,
Beautiful. Really beautiful.
thank you
Both
both.
the stories, both the readings.
No mubs were hurt in
What was that?
The mubs got to your mic. I'm afraid they cut you off.
Now, I do have one question. Sorry to put you on the spot, Thomas. Where does the word mub come from?
You know, I've gotten that question more often than I thought I would. Some people
Mhm.
think it's like a clever allusion to a Philip K. Dick story, The Wub. And
That's
I
what I
Mm.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah, and I go, oh wow, that's a very smart idea. I wish I'd thought of it. That alien creature, that pig-like alien creature. But no, for that one, it was my son who picked out the name. I picked the silliest, weirdest sounding names I could and laid them out and asked him which one he thought was the funniest. And the mub just cracked him up over and over again. He thought that was the best one. So I picked it because I wanted something that sounded very silly and very goofy until, it's not, until it gets a little too close. So thanks to
Mhm.
my son, I guess, for that.
Well, you're bringing that kid up right. He did very good work there.
Absolutely.
I
No,
just,
no chimneys for him.
no,
No.
never.
No.
No.
I think we're going to take out our fireplace now. I've been
I'm just
thinking
gonna
about it
brick
anyway,
mine
because,
up, you know.
you could get a nice big bookcase where in the space that it takes for a fireplace, and the fireplace is only useful a few months of the year, if that. So, yeah. Plus, they're cursed, apparently. Mm. Wow. My brain is seesawing back and forth between these two stories and having quite a time of it. I'm enjoying this. So this has been a phenomenal story hour. And thank you. Thank you, Thomas Ha. Thank you, Clay McLeod Chapman. This is really something. And next week, it's officially Spooky Month. And we're starting off with Frank Orito and David Anaxagoras, who both have a somewhat lighter touch, or can at least, with their horror. I do recommend checking out storyhour2020.com the day of the reading, just to see if there are any changes. Hardly ever happens. You can also just, click right through to the Zoom or the YouTube to watch from there. Very convenient. Also a good place to check the calendar, see who's going to be reading next, and the recording page to see which ones you may have missed that you might want to watch. Maybe watch this one
We've got about
over
5 years there, so you
and
can just peruse.
over and over.
You're bound to find some writers that you love, or some
That's
new ones
right.
you haven't heard of. Just check them out.
Yep. And yeah, I have met writers through Story Hour who have become favorites of mine, and have sometimes had the guts to ask favorite writers to come and read for us too, which is how we got these two gentlemen to. So, and Christina last week too. So, you know, it all works out. It's also good to subscribe to the YouTube page, the Story Hour page on YouTube, because then you'll know when the story hours are coming out on video, and you can go start watching them. So thank you again to our wonderful readers. Thank you to those of you joining us tonight. Thank you most of all to the phenomenal Daniel Marcus, without whom Story Hour would just not even be a thing. And no mub could come up with Story Hour, let me tell you that. So thank you. Thank you for tonight, everybody. And thank you, all of you watching this at some time in the future, because as long as you watch these same stories being read by their authors, we're all together in that same Story Hour.